welcome to another episode of Owning It. I'm so excited to have my next guest here. And I know I say that a lot, that I'm excited to have my next guest here. And when I thought about doing this podcast, my next guest is truly one of the first five people that I thought of. I said five because honestly, I had a lot of other people too that I've met that are so amazing. And I'm like, you know what? So many people can benefit from this type of work or just having this conversation. And I thought, you know what? This guest is perfect because what you and I do, what my next guest and I do, is so different, and yet our conversations were so related. So, everybody, please help welcome Nouchi Vang, who is a certified financial planner and is also the author of Surviving to Thriving, a first generation navigating personal finance. You are worthy of the best outcome. So, welcome, Nouchi.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate you taking the time to invite me to do the podcast with you.
Yeah. So I think you're the first author on my podcast. So I'm very blessed. This podcast is very blessed and thank you for agreeing to be here. So what made you decide to write that book? So give us a little bit about your background and what made you decide to write this book.
Well, I think I shared this with you multiple times, but being Hmong American, right? Um, my parents were farmers. So I grew up in Fresno and we were very poor at the time, but we just didn't know um, that we were poor, right? So we struggle a lot financially. My parents farmed. Um, we struggle financially. They decided to move us to North Carolina, where they bought a couple of restaurant franchise, and we still struggle financially, right?
Mhm.
And at the end of the day, I decided, you know what, this is so hard, right? My dad, is really good at budgeting. My parents are so hardworking. They made sure that we had food on the table, a roof over our head, and one outfit per year, right? One brand new outfit per year
Yeah.
that would last us. And it's always oversized. And it's like, I don't want to continue this cycle of living in poverty, right? There must
Mhm.
be a better way. There must be a
Mhm.
better way. And what I found through my experience in my career is that yes, there was a better way, but my parents didn't have the knowledge to do it, right? They were refugees, political refugees after the Vietnam War, just like a lot of Hmong parents are, right?
Mhm.
And we were born into this new environment. They didn't understand the financial system,
Oh,
right? They
yeah.
didn't have the knowledge to back it, and so they struggle. And so I decided to, at the time, to be a financial advisor, right? And I didn't know until I got into the career and got into the field and started my first job that I realized, oh, what I need to become is a certified financial planner, right? I need
Mhm.
to think multiple generation. I need to think long term. I need to think, how do I set myself up for success? How do I create a better financial outcome for myself so that I can help my parents, help my children, and help other people like us, right? Like my
Mhm.
parents, like myself, because the foundational knowledge wasn't there, right? So along the way, I met a lot of first generation professionals who are doctors,
Mhm.
lawyers, engineers, and they're like, we're really good at what we do, but we just don't have the foundational skills to
Yeah.
budget.
I
Yes, we understand
completely agree.
investing and growing our money is important, but we don't know exactly how to do it and where to start, right? And I kept
Mhm.
hearing that over and over and over. And I began my career in corporate America, right?
How long
Uh,
was that ago?
so it's been about 19 years, 19
Wow.
years this February. And
Wow.
I started with a really great mutual fund company. I
Okay.
know everybody's heard of Vanguard, right?
Yep.
And
Very, very corporate.
yes, and I found out about Vanguard from one of my economic professor. He was just talking about Vanguard one day, and a lot of people around me knew Vanguard and heard of Vanguard, but I never knew about Vanguard. I never heard about them, and then I started doing some research, and I found that the founder was a gentleman that really went to bat for the little guys. He created this mutual fund company so that people that didn't have a lot of money can participate and growing their money in the stock market, right? Or in the investment market. And I decided, you know what, I'm going to go learn and grow with this company.
Mhm.
And I learned and grew with the company. And they were had very great leaders and advocates. But what I found is that in corporate America, as an employee of a company,
Mhm.
have to follow the rules and their policies, right?
Yeah.
So as my experience grew, as my credentials increased, um, I could work with clients that have $5 million or more, right? But because
$5
I didn't
million
have
dollars, like, in assets or
yes, investable assets, right?
oh,
So
wow.
I was at a level where um, I was like knowledgeable, high expertise, and people that had a lot of money can access me. But people that did not have a lot of money still could not access me, right? And so
Mhm.
I love my time at Vanguard. I loved working for Vanguard, but I also found that they were a mutual fund company, which was very limited as a certified financial planner. So that as I learned more and gained more knowledge in my studies to become a certified financial planner, I knew I had to expand my network, right? I had to leave.
Mhm.
And it
Mhm.
was a real struggle, but I left. I went to a large bank. I was with that bank for a few years, and everything you can think of, the bank taught me, right? When it comes to annuity, long term care, life insurance, investment portfolio, even home equity loans,
Mhm.
refinancing, credit cards, money markets, cash alternative, like everything, anything you can think of in the financial industry. Like I learned from my mentors at the bank, right? I learned
Mhm.
from my experience at the bank. But what I also found was that there was a lot of conflict of interest, right? That the
Mm.
bank wanted me to sell bank products. So there was really a lot of conflict of interest there. And sometimes I felt like, this person didn't need this product, but this is how the bank makes their money. And so then
Yeah.
it was really a constant push and pull. And I loved the bank. I loved the people I worked with, but um, I just didn't have the best leaders to support me and
Mhm.
and who I wanted to be as a certified financial planner, right?
Mhm.
So then I decided, and I didn't have like a lot of autonomy. I had policies and rules and regulations I still had to follow. And even at the bank, if you didn't have $1 million of investable assets, you couldn't access me, right? But
Mm.
I had some flexibility at the bank where I could choose to serve others that had less than 1 million. But from a corporate standpoint, it wasn't the best use of my time, right? From a
Mhm.
revenue generating standpoint. So then there was constantly that push and pull. Hey, so then I just decided, my dad got really sick when I was working for the bank, and,
Mm.
and he had been sick for a long time, right?
Okay.
It's typical in the Hmong community to hear of diabetes, right?
Mhm.
High cholesterol, things like that. That
Yeah, which
we didn't
leads
have.
to chronic diseases.
Hmm. And so then my dad had been sick for a long time, and then the last few years I was at the bank, he really went downhill, and then my dad passed away, and then I had this moment of truth, right? I had this moment of why am I working so hard, right, for people that have so much money, right? Which I enjoy working and serving people, and I
Mhm.
enjoy helping them solve their personal financial problems or solutions and strategies and all these great things, right?
Mhm.
Helping them improve their financial outcome
Yeah.
for their children, their grandchildren, in generations. But at the end of the day, like, why did I get into this business, right? I
Yeah.
got into this business to help people like my dad. I got into this business to help people like me, right?
Mhm.
Strive for a better financial outcome. And a lot of people that did not have a lot of money kept telling me over and over that I don't have a lot of money, so I can't access a financial advisor. I don't have a lot of money, so I feel like I'm not worthy
Mhm.
accessing financial advice or financial planning, right? Financial planners. And I was like, if anything, if you really think about it, the people who need certified financial planners like myself the most are people who don't have a lot of money and they want to
Mhm.
build a strong foundation, right? So from there, I made the decision I have to go out on my own. I need to be an independent, certified financial planner, separate from corporate America. But I can take everything I learned in corporate America. I can take everything I learned working with all the individuals and businesses and all the mentors I had, and I can give that back to people like me,
Yeah.
right? Who needs
Yeah.
who I feel like needed the most and would give me a stronger purpose and drive in what I do every day, right?
Mhm.
So, and it's more rewarding to see someone start from the very bottom, and then you're there to guide them and support them and give them knowledge and expertise that they don't have so that they can make them the best decisions for them and their family, or they can or to be there to guide them to create a skill set, right, that they can
Mhm.
pass down to their children and grandchildren. And that's
Mhm.
been my experience too. Working with people with a lot of wealth is that it's not about the money. It's really about the knowledge that
Mhm.
comes with the money, right?
Mhm.
And I came from a generation in a community like the Hmong community where we didn't have that generational knowledge. We don't have that
Mhm.
background because we came from scarcity, starvation, a war-torn third world country.
Rama.
Boom, overnight. We're in
Yeah.
this fully developed countries where
Mhm.
we have no concept or idea of how the financial system works or how
Yeah.
to navigate it or even how to be competitive within it besides go get an education, right?
Mhm. First generation, very first and second generation. It sounds like there's a lot of gatekeeping. Would you say a lot of gatekeeping in the world that you just described in corporate, where you had to have a certain amount of assets before they could work with you? And so, already right there, there's already that disparity and the disparity, the disparity. Yes, I said the correct word. Disparity right there.
Yeah, I agree. And there's access level, right?
Mm-hmm.
Access my level of expertise and my level of experience, you have to have so much money. But as an independent certified financial planner and, creating my own brand, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, it gives me autonomy
Yeah.
to say that there's people that have no investment account,
Mm-hmm.
but they make really good income. They're willing to pay to invest in themselves and to learn and grow because they've tried so many things. And I hear this over and over, interviewing people for my book, to write my book, and even serving the Hmong community up here in Minnesota. And
Mm-hmm.
so here's a little bit of background too.
Yeah.
So I was born in California, grew up in North Carolina, but a couple years ago I moved to Minnesota,
Okay.
right? Because I knew that there was a community that I needed to serve and I wanted to like the Hmong community, right?
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to help serve the Hmong community. Um, and the biggest population, I that I could think of was here in the Twin
Mm-hmm.
City,
Yes.
um, Minneapolis, St. Paul. So I had to be
Mm-hmm.
close because we're and I'm pretty sure it's very similar to other first generation professionals, similar to myself. It's just, when people say that I'm learning, I'm learning in person, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm a better learner when I can see and touch and I can hear my teacher and I can ask questions right away, right then and there, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
that far away, um, from the people that I want to serve, first generation professionals, especially in the Hmong community or the diverse community, it just didn't make sense to continue to stay in North Carolina. And I have family up here too as well that that I could be close to, right? So then I moved up here a couple years ago and I was thinking, oh, this is going to be slow and steady. I'll start, putting the word out, doing some marketing, letting people know that I'm here to help and support. And I targeted specifically the Hmong community, and the response was overwhelming, right? It
Mm-hmm.
was so overwhelming because when you think of corporate America, the traditional experience I had was that, oh, for every 100 people I speak to, maybe 5 or 10 people will engage me and decide to work with me on an ongoing basis. But here it was like within 2 years, um, I had I had 100 clients, right, that I had engaged with and worked with, and so the demand was so great, and my capacity was just like, oh my gosh, I'm like hitting the ground running, like drinking from a fire hose, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so then I and the reason why I wrote my book was that I had to find a way to get the knowledge and the information out, where I can cast a wider net, reach more people, give them the information they need to start building the foundation, right? And then if they needed more advanced support, or they have a more complex scenario or situation, financial situation, then they can kind of reach out to me, because I was running out of time capacity, right? Like you
Mhm.
can only there's only so many hours in a day, so many hours in a week, and it got to a point where I was just working 8 to 8, 7 days a week, and I still couldn't reach everybody that was asking for my support and my guidance, right? Because
Mhm.
a lot of times it's also my background, like where I
Yeah.
come from, right? Because I have clients that are not Hmong, but they're first generation professionals, right? Where they also came from a country where there was war, and they were political refugees, where there's also war and discord, and they came here. Their family, immigrate, migrated to the US, and they're immigrants, and they're first generation professionals too, right?
Mhm.
Doctors, lawyers, nurses, and they're having the same they're s- they're sharing the same story, right? My parents came here, they became professionals, but they didn't know how to navigate the financial system. And so then you don't have that generational knowledge that you can pass down to your kids or your grandkids. Then everybody's learning by trial and error. It's going to take you longer to get there because you're learning by trial and error. And when you're investing in like stocks, right, it's very volatile. So if
Mhm.
you're learning by trial and error and you make a error, right, and you lose a lot of money, it's very scary. And the likelihood of you trying again is probably, I don't want to lose my money, right?
Yeah.
So then the community that I serve is very, very conservative, right?
Mhm.
Very high in cash, very high in life insurance, but they don't do a lot of anything else, right?
Mhm.
And I constantly tell a lot of clients that I serve, like, oh my gosh, like you can build wealth without waiting for people to pass away, right? You can build wealth like today. You don't have, and then you can share that wealth with your loved ones. You can take care of your loved ones and support your loved ones in the way that you want to and you desire to, without having to wait, you know, until they pass away. Because it's just like really that the products that a lot of our first generation community purchases is the first thing they go to is cash and life insurance, right?
Mhm.
And so then it's really introducing like there's so many other things, so many other strategies and solutions that you can consider that can give you a more optimal outcome, so that you can build the wealth, you can gain the knowledge, and then you can pass on that wealth with the knowledge that's required for that wealth to be maintained for the next 100 years or plus, right? And that's what my mission is, that's what my goal is, right? Like,
Mhm.
get to the book, read about the foundation. If you need that hand to hand, one on one support, reach out to me. I'm going to guide you through building the skill set that you need to maintain that foundation. And then you can do it on your own. Or if you build up to a level of wealth where you say, wow, this is a lot of money, I need a professional to help do it for me, then I can help proactively support you in doing it for you as well. Right. So
Mhm.
there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of factors, a lot of things that's important to think about. Right. And and I think that's like my goal is always, when people think of certified financial planner, right? I always tell people like a lot of times people come to me and they're already in the thick of the struggle, right? And it's like, well, if you're in the
What kind
thick
of
of,
struggles do you see when they come to you?
so they might have a disability, right?
Mhm.
That they've already have. Like, so for example, I had a couple that came to me, and there was an accident, and one of the spouse became totally disabled, and they were just like, "Oh my gosh, like we don't have any disability insurance. We don't have these things that we needed if we had worked with a certified financial planner." And it wasn't until that life event happened, that accident happened, and we started struggling, where the spouse couldn't work anymore. The spouse lost their business, and then the working
Mm.
spouse had to quit their job to come take care of them because they were disabled permanently disabled, right? Like they
Yeah.
need someone to care for them 24 hours every day on the
Mm.
clock, right? And then they started depleting their assets, selling off their investment assets, selling off their, and it got to a point where they're like, we need a certified financial planner. And it's like, well, we're already in the thick of the situation. There's not a lot of flexibility or things that there's not a lot of solutions or strategies I can help you with, but I can do the best I can with what you still have, right?
Mhm.
Because the bulk of what they've accumulated, they've already spent, right? Over the last couple years trying to maintain um, their bills and their lifestyle because they're both no longer working, right? And
Mm.
so then that struggle became, at the end of the day, it's like, well, do you have family members that can help you? Do you have family members that can take care of you? Because the able-bodied spouse has to return to work, right?
Yeah.
Your what you have left over can only help you so much, right? The investments that you have, the home property you have, it can only stretch so far because this disability is going to be for life, right?
Mhm.
And I think that's what a lot of people don't talk about disability because you I and then this is from my experience too, even working with all the clients I have, is that
Yeah.
yeah, when someone passes away instantly, unexpected,
Mhm.
people talk about it because it's very sad, it's very sad, it was unexpected. But the majority of the time, people have a heart attack, they have a stroke, they have an accident, they become disabled for life and then lasts for like decades, right?
Mhm.
And nobody talks about it because everybody's trying to take care of that person. And then once that person finally passed away, and they're like, oh, yeah, he had a stroke like 10, 15 years ago. Oh, yeah, he had a heart attack. And then, this, or there was a car accident, and, they've had like pains for decades, right?
Mhm.
We're taking care of them, and they've been home, they've been homebound, right? And they don't talk about it till afterwards, right? And then people go, oh my God, like I have a similar story. I have a similar event, or something happened to my cousin or my uncle or my relative or something like that. But they don't plan for it, right? So I always tell people that when they come to me, they're already in the thick of the situation of like, how do I solve this? I'm already in the problem, right?
Mhm.
And it's like we got to do the best we can with what you have, because the problem's already here. It's already face to face with you, and you're already living in it, right?
Mhm.
And they come to me for financial planning, but financial planning is really about it. That's the key, right? Financial planning. You plan
Mhm.
ahead, right? So that when you plan ahead, and the sooner the better, because the goal of financial planning is that we want to be prepared, like for worst case scenario. We want to plan for best case scenario, but we have to be prepared for worst case scenario. So the financial planning process helps you think through those things, right?
Mhm.
I joke all the time because I tell people like, you know, I talked to when we were teaching my son how to drive, right? My son's 20.
Yeah.
And we're like, okay, you're driving down the road. If a deer jump in front of you, what are you gonna do? How do you react, right?
Mhm.
Well, if no one ever told you that a deer could possibly jump up and like, across your car, then how would you know, right? Unless
Mhm.
someone share that with you, that these are the possible worst case things that could happen when you're on the road, right? So
Yeah.
then how do you react? How do you respond? How do you overcome, this challenge or this hurdle, right? So then that's the same with, your personal finances. It's like you think of all the things that are important to you, all the people that are important to you, and you imagine, what's the best outcome for yourself, your family, and your loved one in the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years. And even when you're gone, how do you want them, how do you want their life to be? What do
Mhm.
you want your life to look like with them? What do you want your life to look like, as they grow, right? As they mature, become adults, and have their own children. You imagine all these great, wonderful things, right? And then you plan for it, right?
Mhm.
And for that best outcome. And along the way, there are going to be challenges, there's going to be hurdles and bumps in the road. And then you think through like best case, worst case scenario of how would I react? What do I need to do? What are solutions and strategies that I need to put in place today? So if those things should happen, I can easily just overcome them, right?
Mhm.
and not have financial setbacks versus if those things should happen, I'm unprepared, I don't know what to do, and I don't have a plan for it, right? And so then that becomes a struggle, right? So I encourage a lot of young individuals that engage me where they have this, they know it's important to do financial planning. They just don't know where to start, or they think they don't have, they don't have a lot of money, so then they can't access it. Or if
Mhm.
you're like, I don't have a lot of money, so I don't know if I can work with you. It's like, no, it's not. It's not about the money. It's about the knowledge, right?
Mhm.
I need to give you the foundation, the knowledge. I need to teach you a skill, right? I need to give you a tool so that you can build to that level where you have money, you have wealth, you have investment portfolios so that you could be prepared for that worst case scenario if it should happen. With that said, it doesn't mean that just because you're planning for worst case scenario that it's all going to happen or it's going to happen. The majority of the time, being prepared and having a plan and thinking through these things, right? The good, the bad, and the ugly, they
Mhm.
tend not to happen because you're already thinking through them. So then you're making the right decisions to go on the right path to say, these are decisions I'm making so those bad things don't happen, right?
Mhm.
Versus I don't have the skill or the knowledge or the foundation and like joint pick I like let thought that wasn't a like
Mhm.
randomly
Right.
doing it, right? Blindly doing it and
Mhm.
hoping that something sticks or something works, right?
Mhm.
Then and it's like and that becomes like um the challenge there is time, right?
Mhm.
Because when you're investing, from my experience in the stock market, you're investing in the investment securities, and time is of the essence. The younger you start, the better off you're going to be long term,
Mhm.
right? So, so then my mission and my goal has always been that I want to give back the knowledge, expertise, experience I have to people that need it the most, like myself, right?
Mhm.
And I started my business with that mission in mind. And that will always be my mission in mind is that I want to serve people who need it the most. I want to give access and knowledge and information to people who need it the most. And so that I can build them up to have that better outcome. And along the way, it's also, I think, being Hmong, right? Being very
Mhm.
American, first generation professional, in the way we grew up in scarcity, in the way we grew up in our parents grew up in a third world country, right? And they grew up in scarcity and then we experienced scarcity.
Mhm.
It's also a lot of mindset, right? There's a lot of
Yes.
mindset struggle. This is where you and I talk about it a lot, right? Where a lot of people
We
feel a lot of
do.
shame, unworthiness, or afraid to make a mistake. Or if they make a mistake, they're afraid to ask for help, right?
Shame. There's a lot of shame.
Mhm. Oh,
And I think that's where you and I have such these wonderful conversations. Even though you and I do such different things,
mhm.
there's so much interconnectedness of what we do, especially when you talk about the shame, you talk about reaching out for help, and money. Money is a very, it's a very, it's very private. It's very
Mhm.
private. There's a lot of feelings to it, and yet it's probably the number one thing that couples discuss and divorce about. And that's why it's so important for us to network with each other, because it's like, oh, okay, I'm a therapist, you do this, okay, there's like a divorce lawyer I know. So it's all
Yes.
money. Money, there's so much about money and money shame and money conversations. And what type of conversations do you see around this? Even though I remember you telling me that you tell your clients, I'm not a marriage counselor.
Yes.
don't, I don't do this kind of work. And yet you feel like you are, even though you're like, I'm staying in my lane. This is not what I do. And yet people come to you with all of these. Like, how do you navigate these conversations with couples?
Yeah. I think it is very, and it's just because of my experience. I've seen it, I've gone through it. And when I was a very young advisor, I had a couple I was working with, and I went through the financial planning process with them, um, and it ended up in divorce, right? And I was thinking, oh my
Mhm.
God, like, did I do something? Did I, was it something I said? Was it a question I asked? And it was something like, it was already a struggle they already had. Like it was like kind of like, oh, maybe their marriage was already struggling. And I
Mhm.
just asked them to think about the future. And I
Oh.
asked them a few questions, and they came back with, oh, we don't want the same things. And we mutually agree that, we're going to divorce, right? It was like the husband wanted to retire, travel the world, and, see things, go to concert, experience things. And then the wife wanted to stay home and be like, I want to live right next door to my daughter and watch my granddaughter grow up and spend time with them. And they just wanted two very different things. And they just imagined two very different retirement. And I guess I said, well, that's a conversation the two of you need to have and work out. And then you can come back to me and tell me what your goals are and what you want to accomplish. And then from there, we can strategize and I can put solutions together for you. And then after a few conversations, they came back and decided, oh, we decided to divorce. I'm like, oh my God. I was like, oh my God, like, kind of like horrified, petrified, like, what the heck happened here, right? I don't know. And then just kept having those experience, right? Where people just
Yeah.
don't think about you're in the thick of like having kids, raising a family, building your career, and the hustle and bustle of your career. And then they really didn't like maybe it was on top of mind, but they didn't have time to have those conversation. But that was the very first time like something like that happened, right? And so then along the way, what I learned was that I I I didn't know what to say at that time because I was very young, certified financial planner. I was just you know, I did I just was like kind of like, oh my gosh, taken aback, right?
Yeah.
But what I found over the years is that support and encouragement, like to do things together, make decisions together, especially with my young couples,
Mhm.
have those conversation is to like give each other like no judgment, right? Give each other leniency to try to understand where they come from. Because I tend to see that in couples, you have one couple that is a good saver, and you
Mhm.
have one couple that's like a spender, right? And they just can't help themselves but spend and spend and spend. And I've been in both boats. Okay.
Mhm.
So starting my career right out of college, I starting, I just I was like I spent because I never had things.
Right.
I never had, my own brush. I never had my own pretty dress. I always had hand-me-downs. And so for maybe 3 to 5 years of my corporate career, I bought purses and shoes and dresses. I bought so much clothes, that kunchana, that I
Mhm.
wanted so badly when I was younger,
Oh.
and then we just didn't have the money for it. Like things that, I because we were just so poor that I really wanted, and I bought all those things, but I bought so much of it. Some of them, like when I was donating some of my stuff, when I cleaned out my closet for spring cleaning, they still had tags on it. Shoes that I never wore, dresses that I never wore, purses that maybe I love the way it looked because it was so beautiful, but
Yeah.
never like was never useful to me. And so I did that for about 3 to 5 years. And then it got to a point where I slowly started at the third year mark. I'm like, oh, I'm just throwing money away because I buy all the stuff that I really, really want because I've
Mhm.
never had before. And then every year I donate them and give them away.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's not good use of my money or my mindset was just in like I was just so young. I was in my early 20s, right? And then it got to a point where I worked with a lot of mentors and leaders, and I started learning more and more about personal finance and budgeting and credit card and paying down debt and things like that. So then I started going, you know what? I need to up my 401k contribution. I need to
Mhm.
open, 529s for my kids. I need to do all these other things because I'm just basically throwing my money away. I'm buying all these things, donating it and giving it away, donating it or not using it. And so then I went through that phase too. And then when I finished that phase, I went into a saver phase where I was a better saver than my spouse, right?
Mhm.
And my spouse was the one that would every weekend, as soon as he got paid, he would go buy a toy for our son every single week. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, like he has so much toys that he doesn't even play with half of them, right? So let's have a conversation. Let's think about this, right? And when you're young and inexperienced and in the struggle of life, right? You have idea or expectations of how things should be or things would be, right?
Mhm.
And it's not, and it's things that are happening beyond your control, right?
Yeah.
Then you're struggling, right? You're struggling. And so then I have a lot of couples that, come to me for help and support, and they know they need it. They know they
Mhm.
have they know they have a spouse that's a overspender, right?
Mhm.
They know the saver is usually the one encouraging them to come, or on some occasions, the overspender is the one that's coming and saying, "Oh, my spouse is a good saver, but I have this problem, and I need you to help me so I can
Mhm.
be a better person or spouse for my family." Right?
Mhm.
And so then they come to me and they cry in my office. Right? They learn for the first time the level of debt that they actually have. Right?
Mhm.
And all these things. Right? And it's like, and in the beginning, when I was a young advisor, I didn't know what to say or do. But then, as with experience in Asian, it's like, well, I have to say something, right?
Mhm.
I have to say something because if it's a couple that's coming to me for help and they're just in my office, like, accusing each other or being upset at each other, then I've said, okay, stop. You're here for help. I'm going to help you, but this conversation is not productive, right? You blaming each other for what's already happened is not productive. We have
Mhm.
to find a way to move forward. And so we can have this conversation. I can help you navigate it. Or you need to have this conversation, come back to me and decide how you want to move forward, right? So I know
Mhm.
how to support you. And then I do have, like, I had a client once tell me, like, oh my gosh, Nouchi, you're more than just a certified financial planner. You know, you're like a best friend I can share, like, my financial struggles with. You're like a marriage counselor.
I was like, "You're the conversation that you just had, that was marriage therapy right there."
Yeah, you have all these, you're more than just that. And I'm like, "Whoa, just to give you full disclosure, I am not a marriage counselor.
Mhm.
I'm not a therapist, right?
Mhm.
I just feel like if I need to be productive in this personal financial journey that you
Yeah.
need to go on, then we need to have you in the right mindset. We need
Yeah.
you have we need you to I need you, the two of you, to cooperate with, like, being on board, being on the same page, wanting the same things, right? And if you don't, and typically most of the time, and it's interesting too because this is primarily in the Hmong community that I've been serving, where it becomes a real struggle for the Hmong men, and then the Hmong women will continue with me, right? Because they
Mhm.
want a better financial outcome, and then they're like, the Hmong men will just kind of like, she can do whatever she wants, and then they'll just kind of like, okay, I'll just kind of go along with it, right? But I'm not going to have these tough conversations, right? Because I don't want to. Like, I don't want to think about it. I don't want to worry about it. And
Mhm.
so then the Hmong women tends to like take the lead, right?
Mhm.
I've always like kind of had a feeling, and I've always seen that because when you look at the research and the data and statistic, like, Hmong women have more higher education, more professional jobs, while the Hmong men have more blue collar, less education. And you see the research, you see the data, and you think, oh, that's interesting, right? But then when I'm having these personal financial conversations, like, wow, the mindset struggle is real,
Mhm.
right? Because of the culture that we grew in, the culture that we've been conditioned in, and how to feel about ourselves.
Mhm.
So that's why I put that last piece in the book, right? The book is Surviving to Thriving, a first generation navigating personal finance, but speaking with a lot of young individuals,
Mhm.
men and women, that come from a immigrant family background, first or either first generation born or grown, or first generation professional.
Mhm.
What I've found is that a lot of them think that they're not worthy, right? So then I said, I have to put this in the title of my book. You are worthy of the best outcome, right?
Mhm.
And I just need them to see it and read it, right? Because
Mhm.
people, like everybody, like, you know, needs to see that, right? Because that's the struggle that we have, like when we come from scarcity, starvation, and things that we've never had, right? And then we act in a way where society tells us it's wrong, right? Or culturally it tells us that we can't do that, or we shouldn't do that, or we shouldn't be this or be that, right? Then that really sets into like, oh, maybe it's either um, shameful, disgraceful, disappointing, or maybe, I don't deserve it, right? Right.
Can you
And
give me an example to so our so the audience kind of knows like what kind of situations do they feel like they're not worthy of, or like situations where there's a lot of shame? Or if you're able to share any of it.
yeah, and it comes down to money, right?
Mhm.
And it comes down to, so that the biggest thing that I feel serving like the Hmong community, that people feel like pressure and shame about, is the inability to give back to the collective family. Okay.
Mhm.
So that if you as an individual, so for example, I have a young Hmong man, and I work with him, and he makes really good income. And in the beginning, he said, "Look, I gave everything to my parents, to my cousin, my relatives, and that was how I was conditioned, right? To give back, right? I'm giving so much, and then when, I'm giving so much of my income, my money, that I can't build for myself. So then I just decided I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm going to strengthen myself first, build for myself first, and there's like bad connotation that comes with it, right? Oh, you're greedy, you're stingy, you don't love the family, you don't want to help the family. But at the end of the day,
Shame.
yeah,
Shame.
they're
Yep.
shaming him.
The shaming.
They're
Yep.
shaming
So much
him.
shame.
Yeah, they're shaming him. And then if there's not a, like let's say there's like a wedding or a funeral, right? And we felt like we didn't give enough, then it's your fault because you're the higher income earner and you should have given us more money, right? And I experienced that myself. I
Yeah.
did. Like I told my dad, like when I got my job at Vanguard, I mean, he was like, wow, like, and it wasn't a lot of money, by the way. Right out of college, I think I was making like 30,000 a year. And I was sharing with him, my salary, and he's like, "Oh my god, that's the most money anybody in our family's ever made." I was the first one to graduate college. I was the first one to get a professional job. And
Mhm.
then it was kind of like, well, my money became their money, right? And so that when they needed things for funerals or weddings or family events, then they would ask me for it. And
You were
then
the lottery kid.
yeah, and then I would help them, right?
You feel
And it
obligated to.
Yes, and it's so crazy because I've had these conversations with other individuals that are professional, and they said that they feel so, like, much pressure to do it that they would go into debt just giving money to their elders or their parents or relatives, right? And I'm just like, "Oh my god," right? And that was a big struggle in my marriage too, was that that money should be kept for me, my husband, and my kids, and that was a real struggle because my
Yeah.
husband at the time didn't share the same philosophy I did, because he's like,
Mhm.
"We're struggling financially and you're giving money to your parents to go donate to a funeral, to a wedding, like it doesn't make any sense." But our culture has conditioned us to be a collective, right?
Yeah.
And
And if
that's the
you
good
don't
thing.
give, then you're
Yeah,
selfish, you're greedy.
yeah. And it's not bad, right? There's good and bad to everything. Because when you
Mhm.
think about it and you think of like collective responsibility, right? You think of
Mhm.
where we came from, third world country, right? The strongest survives, right? Or if you don't work together as a group or as a team, then we all die together, right? Like we
Mhm.
all starve to death, right? So
Yeah.
then, it's kind of like in the decisions that they had to make. Like my mom will always like tell these stories about how upset she was, how she wanted to go to school, but she could never go because she had to stay home, take care of the younger kids, go help her mom on the farm. So they only had enough money to send like the oldest son to
Yeah.
school,
The
right?
boys. Yeah.
Yeah,
The
the boy.
son.
And that boy had to, like, the expectation is that we're gonna pour everything we have into this one person, and that one person will come back and be responsible for us financially and take care of us and help us make better, you know, decisions to improve the collective,
Mhm.
group, right? The
Mhm.
collective family, the collective clan, the collective relative, cousin, uncles, and that was one big responsibility for one. That was a lot of responsibility for that one person. But when you have like you have scarcity and you had to choose and you can only support that one person, then it's that's how our parents have been conditioned to be, our
Mhm.
grandparents have been conditioned to be, and
Yeah.
that's what they passed on to us.
Yeah.
But we live in America. We
Yeah.
don't live in that. The environment has changed, right?
Mhm.
And that's why you see a lot of breakup of families in the
Mhm.
US, is because the environment is different now. Every single person in that family has the opportunity to go get an education, right?
Yes.
Public education.
Mhm.
Everybody now has the opportunity to go work. You can even work at McDonald's and make good
Yeah.
money, right? As a
Yeah.
manager,
They're
work your
getting
way
like
up, right?
15, 16 bucks now. That's more than I ever made as a kid.
Yes. And there's all these social wellness
Yeah.
wellness program that supports you
Mhm.
when it comes to like clothing and food and you know having shelter, right?
Yeah.
Which in a third world country, if you didn't you yourself as a collective group didn't have that, then you just all perish.
Yeah.
That's it, right?
Yeah.
Here, like we have social programs, like we
Yeah.
have structures and infrastructures and you know economic opportunities and advancements that you have nowhere. We did not have in a third world country, right? The
Mhm.
environment has changed, right? And that people now have the ability and capability to do those things, right? But they
Mhm.
still apply a very old like way of doing things and mindset of doing things um, to young individuals who are
Mhm.
becoming like professionals, right?
Yeah.
And so then that pressure is still there, right? So the good thing is that working as a collective, being, it's like we can help each other. We can like be a network, a support system, right?
Mhm.
And that's great. That's wonderful. But then the cultural and social pressure to say you got to give money to the family, to the clan, constantly, over and over and over and over, monthly, weekly, yearly, it becomes a financial struggle, like
Mhm.
for the individual, right? And the individual's family.
Mhm.
So that mindset have to shift, right? So, if you give what you can, if you can give it. So for a lot of my couples that are struggling with that, I tell them you budget,
Mhm.
right? If you're gonna give, then you budget. I want to
Mhm.
give 1,000 this year, 3,000 this year, 5,000 this year, and you stay within your budget. And even for me personally, it took me a long time to actually tell my dad no, right? He'll be like, "Oh, there's a wedding. Can you give me 100?" Or there's a funeral. Can you give me 200? And every time he asks, I will always give, right?
Mhm.
Even if I was struggling, I will find a way to give, right?
Mhm.
And then it got to a point where I just said, I can't, right? I can't give you 200. I can't give you 500. I can give you 100,
Mhm.
give you 150, right?
Mhm.
And then I started like, as I became like, I just more experience with other adults, mature individuals, um, and the encouragement of my spouse to say, hey, you just have to say no, right?
Mhm.
It took me 10
Boundaries.
years,
Mhm.
10 years, by the way. It wasn't until I was in my 30s that I was able to tell my dad no. And it wasn't like a no, like I don't want to help you. It was like no, I'm struggling, dad. I
Yeah.
have 4 kids. I have like a house, a car, like I have, student loans. I have all these obligations and I can't give you the level that you're asking for. And then he said, well, give what you can. I said, oh my God, like my dad wasn't mad. He wasn't angry. He was just like, it was just in my mind
Yeah.
because I tell people it was in my mind. And I even told this to my spouse that, my parents grew up poor. They struggled. I grew up poor. I was in the struggle with them, right?
Mhm.
We all struggle in poverty together.
Yeah.
We all had that poverty experience together so that now that I'm a little bit better off, I want to help them. I want to
Mhm.
return, their hard work and their sweat and tears and blood in a way to appreciate, to let them know that I do appreciate them, and that they did the best they could with what
Mhm.
they had, right?
Mhm.
And now that I'm doing good, I want to give back, right?
Mhm.
And for me, it was just in my mind because when I did tell my dad I don't have that level of money, but I can give this, he was like, "Okay, then give what you can," right?
Mhm.
And if you can't, then you can't, and it's okay. And there's been time where he asked and I said, I don't have it. It's not in my budget right now. And he found a way to get it somewhere else.
Mhm.
He found another relative, another cousin, another uncle somewhere else that was able to cover the difference or the gap. And that's like very resourceful, right?
They're resourceful when they want to.
Yeah. But what I found with my clients though is that not all parents are like that. Some parents actually push back really hard and guilt them. And
Yeah.
say, how could you? Like, you're single, you're not married, you have no kids.
What do you do with all your money? You got no
Yes,
responsibility.
you have no responsibility. And then it's like,
Mhm.
well, I live in an apartment, I pay rent, I have a car insurance, like I have all these responsibility too, but they just like, yeah, I had a client, I have not just one, but multiple clients where they've experienced that where I said, well, just tell parents you don't have it and see what they say. And they came back with, whoa, they came back and they laid it on hard, the guilt trip, you're single, you have no responsibility, you make money and that money belongs to the family, belongs to us. You should, I gave you life. You should support me or give me everything you have. I am everything, you are everything I allow you to be or made you to be. And I'm just like, oh my God, like,
That's
dang,
when
like,
you need to come to therapy and develop your boundaries. This is why you and I have such great conversations. I'm just shaking my head right there where
mhm, mhm,
that's toxic parenting right there. And I
yeah,
think a lot of people in our community is like, well, I'll never. And it's like, that's so white to have boundaries. At some point, you have to have boundaries. At some point, you have to have
yeah,
boundaries, especially with your money.
yeah. And we just never been in this environment before. This is like the first few generations of like, being born overseas and growing up here, becoming professional, being born here, becoming a professional, and then our children, right?
Hmm.
Because my kids ask me all the time, "Oh my God, mom, like, um, grandpa and grandma was so mean to you. They were so like horrible to you. Like, um, why do you still love them? Why do you still help them?" And I said, "Well, my experience with them is that, we struggle. Like once you have that struggle together, it like kind of um, bonds you, right?
Hmm.
And then we also have a culture of enmeshment, right?
Hmm.
And then that enmeshment is like it runs deep, and they've been enmeshed, themselves to their family. So they've enmeshed us. And it's a very hard thing to break when you don't have the right tools and the right support, right?
Hmm.
And I've actually experienced this with other young Hmong individual where I was working with a young person, and their family convinced them that they were wasting their money, building a personal financial foundation to budget, and that they were very anti-debt, and that, and this young person said, "I have to move out. I live with my parents, my younger siblings, and she wanted a better outcome, and she just like, I give them all my money. I can't do this anymore. I need tools. I need to find resource. I need to give myself some skills to better navigate this, right?" And I said, what I can help you is budgeting, right? I can help you with budgeting. I can give you some guidance and support on how to like, say, hey, it's not within my budget. Don't say you don't have money. Just say it's not in your budget, right?
Hmm.
But they by then they already knew her finance. They already knew how much money she makes. They already knew that, she's like the first one to graduate college, the first one to have a professional job, one of the older siblings, and it's her responsibility to take care of everybody, right? And so then the younger siblings become complacent. They don't get
Mm.
jobs. They
Mhm.
just kinda lounge around the house, feel entitled to the older kids will take care of me. And then, um, and then her parents just really like, I worked with her for about a year, and
Mm.
eventually she's like, my siblings and my parents are pressuring me to stop, that it's a losing battle and that she I saw it coming, and I just did my best to encourage her to keep going,
Yeah.
and having conversation about, solutions and strategies to help her and support her. But in the end, it was a losing battle because the pull there was too strong.
Mhm. Too
And
much investment, like you said.
they pulled her back, and the plan was we were going to budget, we were going to save, we were going to build her credit. She's going to go get an apartment. She and her friends will share the costs. Once she becomes financially stronger and capable, she could still turn back and help the family. But she's like, she can't have that journey while still in the family home, right? Around the family's pressure. But in the end, she gave it up, and I just said,
Mm.
"It's okay. Like, don't be disappointed in yourself. Don't beat yourself up. I'm still here, you know? Like, when you're ready, if you wanna restart the process, just come back, right? I'm not going anywhere, right?" But it's very hard, and that's happened to multiple individuals I worked with, where I had an individual that their in-laws were pressuring her to, like, quit her job so she can get free Medicaid and live off the system, and she was like, "My husband's asking me to do it, my sister-in-law is pressuring me to do it, my mother and father-in-law is pressuring me to do it." She married into that family, right? So the social pressure to say, "Listen to your in-laws, listen to your husband," like, follow their lead and stuff, even though she knew that where they were leading her was not gonna be the best path and is not gonna give her child that she was pregnant with the best financial outcome. She was so she just could not, um, she could not, break away from that practice or that norm or that I have to follow them, right? And it's like, okay, you know, I mean, you that's a decision you make, right?
Mhm.
But the pressure around you to make that decision and to be that type of person, um, I think she made that decision. I feel kind of like I don't know what the outcome is going to be for her, but I feel for me personally that when I make those type of decision, whether it's culturally, socially, enmeshment, or when I'm making decisions that's not true to myself and my values and my belief and what I feel in my gut is right, that I destroy myself. I feel that. I beat myself up. I knew better. I should have been stronger. I should have stood up for myself. I should have advocated for my younger sibling. I should have advocated, but I just didn't do it. I just kind of kept letting, my parents, you know, do like take their money, or I kept letting them believe that they should give all their money to, an elder. And it's like, but it was in that, and it really, as a human being, right? When you see like injustice, right? When
Mhm.
you see bad things happening that you could have done differently or help in a different way, or just made a different decision, right?
Yeah.
To give yourself a better outcome or to give other people you love a better outcome, that it really kills your soul, right? At the time you're making those decisions, you feel like, well, it's the right thing to do because the elders are telling me this is the right thing to do because the cultural pressure and the social pressure um, is the accepting things to do. You feel like, yes, you're being. It's kind of like making decision under duress, right?
Yeah.
And so then you make that decision and you think, yes, it's going to be okay because the culture support this, the community support this, the clan support this, and like, and it's going to be okay. But then you as an individual person, it kind of hurts you because
Mhm.
you went against the grain of who you are. You went
Yeah.
against the
You
grain of what
challenge
you're
the
seen
status
as well,
quo.
right? Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so then that's what I find is that And then you kind of let that build up over 5 years, 10 years, and then you feel this great shame and disappointment and unworthiness. And it's like, and then you have to undo it, right?
Mhm.
But then
You
you don't
gotta
have
rebuild that foundation. You gotta
then
forge your own
you don't
path.
have the skill set, or you don't
Yeah.
have the mindset, or you don't have the resource to kind of help you rebuild it. So
Mhm.
then that's a real struggle. And I talk about that in my book too, like the cultural environment, the way we grow up as a immigrant family, the way we grow up as a first generation or second, even second generation, like, or even a first generation professional, first generation
Mhm.
born in the US, first generation that grew up here. It's always, it's that struggle, right?
Yeah.
But it's, you have the good and the bad, right? And everything has a good and a bad, right? Because even the balance of like, I have some relatives that would say, "Oh my gosh, you become so Americanized." Like, well, why is that bad? You
Why is
know?
that bad? Because I have boundaries? Because I protect myself? Because you can't take advantage of me?
Yeah, because
Mhm.
now we have access to make our own money. We have access to, like, I tell people um like people have this idea that, because I had this conversation with my daughter too, my kids, because my
Okay.
kids go, so and so had really good parents. Why did they turn out bad, right? Or so and so had really horrible parents, but they turn out so great, right? And it's like, it's not, it's it's your experience is part of it, right? Nature versus nurture. But at the same time, it's also like it's you, right, as an individual person, right?
Mhm.
Even if you're not in the most nurturing environment, or even if you have the best nurturing environment, if it's in your nature, right, to do certain things or not do certain things and make those choices or not make those choices, like you yourself have to have a strong core belief in who you are as a person, right? And you have to decide like what to do and what not to do, right? So that even if someone gives you permission to do something horrible, doesn't mean you should do it, right?
Mhm.
So then I tell my kids all that time, because I have 3 young girls, and I'm always like, just because an adult gives you permission to do something doesn't mean you should do it. You should actually think about it. Be a critical thinker. Think
Mhm.
about it. Why are they asking me? Should I do it? Is it against what I believe? Is it going to hurt me? Is it going to hurt other people I love? Like, are they doing this out of like love and care for me? Are they doing this, for to my own detriment for their entertainment, right?
Mhm.
So then it's kind of like, it's like you got to think about these things. And
Yeah.
so then I do encourage my kids to like challenge me. Don't be disrespectful, but do challenge me,
Yeah.
right? And they do. I do. And people are like, "Oh my God, like your kids do that?" I'm like, "Yes." When my daughter was 8 years old, she's 10 now. And 2 years ago when we moved here, she was 8 years old. I tell this story all the time.
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, mom, it's so embarrassing." And I was like, "Well, it's a lesson that I learned from you."
Mhm.
I tell people this because I learned this from you, you know. And she was wrapping a gift for a friend, and she was really proud of this gift that she saved of her own money and bought. And she was like, "This is like one of my best friend, and I want to make sure that the gift is wrapped nice." But she didn't know how to close the ends of the wrapper,
Mhm.
so it looked like a hot mess. And then
Mhm.
she was just like, and I was in the hustle and bustle of busyness, working and, family visiting and, all this scheduling work, family. Oh my gosh, I still got to buy gifts for my kids. And,
Mhm.
I'm like rushing and always like late and behind on doing these things. And I'm here trying to wrap all my gifts frantically to go to a family party. And she's just like, "Mom, I really need your help." And then she like, I really need your help. And then she told me about her friend and how she wants this as a gift, and that she saved her money herself, and she needs help, like, closing the ends of her, the wrapping papers. And I looked at it and I was like, "Oh my God, that's a hot mess." And I love wrapping. I'm one of those people who crease the paper, make it wrap perfect, and everything put a
Yeah.
bow on everything. And I
Mhm.
said, "Oh, okay, well, I'll help you." And so I just tore up her wrapping paper and rewrapped the whole gift in a very nice, clean package for her.
Mhm.
And she started crying. And I was like, "Oh my God, what's wrong?" And she's like, "Mom, you're so disrespectful. All my hard work. I did so much work to wrap that gift. You just tore it up. And I was like, oh, shoot, I did. Like, oh, I didn't even think about it. She's
Yeah.
like, all I asked was you to close the ends for me, Mom. And you tore up all my hard work. And
Mm.
she felt so, she was just crying like hysterically. And I was
Yeah.
just like, and I had to think about what she said. And I had to
Mhm.
go, you're right. I did tear up your work, and that I disrespected like all the hard work you put into it. And I'm so sorry. Gave her a hug. I told her I'll never do it again. Right. And I'm like, I learned something from that. Right.
Yeah.
And she's 8 years old. And so I tell my kids all the time, like, you teach me stuff all the time that I don't even know. You know?
Mhm.
Like, because that's the human experience, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, but then if I don't tell them it's okay for them to challenge me or communicate with me or share their feelings or their thoughts, then she would have never said that to me,
Yeah.
right? 'Cause
You offer her psychological safety.
yeah, I think that's what we don't have in the when it comes to the Hmong community and immigrant families where
Mm-mm.
there's like a hierarchy of authority.
Yeah.
And I tell my kids all the time, like, um, disrespect means different things to different people because if I ever talk back to my father, it was disrespectful. Whether I was right or wrong, it didn't matter. Don't talk back. And
Mhm.
so and my dad was traditional in a sense that, you know, 너무 윤다오나? You know?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's funny. We grew up talking back, and so we were really
Yeah.
disrespectful, really
Yes.
disrespectful. And
Yes.
it's so interesting when you talk about that Hmong, about the Hmong dynamics. And I'm gonna call it out. Some of us prefer to stay in generational curses, and some of us want to create generational wealth.
Yeah. And I
And
think it comes back to fear. You're
yeah,
afraid of the unknown.
yeah.
Um,
And a lot of us are. A lot of us are afraid of the unknown. And I look at my parents and other parents, and they will say, "Oh, go don't go do that. Don't go do that." It's like, well, why not? Well, you don't know. It's like, I know we don't know. That's why we have to go out and find out. And they don't have the same mindset. And you said it so right on. It's all about our mindset.
mhm. It is. It is. Because well, I think one experience I had was that I had a young man that I was working with, and we are doing the personal financial coaching program where I was teaching how to budget and do debt management and things like that. And it was really interesting because he's like, I'm trying to do the right thing, right? I'm trying to get the knowledge and the foundation and build this skill set that I know I don't have, but I go back and share with like my other male
Mhm,
um, cousins and
mhm,
siblings, and they put me down. They make fun of me. Ha
mhm.
ha, why are you working with someone to budget? Like, are you an idiot? Like, it's kind of like, but even they themselves don't know how to budget, right? Even they
Exactly.
themselves don't have the right skill set, but then they see that he's trying to improve himself. So they put him down.
He's
And
a
he's like,
threat.
yeah. And then he's just like, and then I said, then why do you talk to them about it? Why do
Yeah.
you share with them? He's like, well, because if he's like, this is giving me a better outcome, so I want to share with them so that they can have a better outcome, but all they do is put me down. And so then I'm like, well, that's really tough because then it becomes a choice, right?
Mhm,
Do I continue to stay connected to these people that I feel like I love them? They
mhm,
may not be supporting me in the best way to be better, or do I leave that group, right?
mhm.
And then become alone, be alone on my own, right? And so then that's a really lonely road to take, and it's hard for you to find, you know, good friends and good people with a like mindset. But then those good friends and good people tend to be outside of the community, right? The
Yes.
people, my best supporter, um, and the people who have supported me the most and pushed me the most to be the best I can be. They were not my parents. They were not my siblings. They were Mika
Yeah.
teachers I had in the American school system. They were
Mhm.
friends. that were African American, they were, you know, Hispanic. They were like people of other culture.
Everybody else besides Hmong.
Yes, that
Yeah,
was not
yeah.
Hmong.
It's
None
not
of them were.
Hmong. Yeah,
It was just
and
people, and like a lot of my colleagues and mentors, they're all like um, white Caucasian men, women. They were a lot of men, women of color, um, in different backgrounds, and and it was they who pushed me. Every time I thought, I don't think I can do this. You can do it. We see it in you. We know
mhm,
you have the aptitude, the capability. We want you to do it, right? And they encourage me and they support me and they push me. Like I almost didn't become a certified financial planner because my dad didn't want me to or didn't believe in me. Even my own spouse didn't believe in me. But it was I had a supervisor that I worked with that believed in me.
mhm,
It's like I already see you as a certified financial planner. I already know you're gonna be this amazing certified financial planner because you're an amazing human being and you're going to do great things for so many people. And
yeah,
for you to do that and continue to do that, you need to
mhm,
go back to school, become a certified financial planner, get that credential. You have to, right?
mhm,
And then I thought about it, and then he's like, I want you to think about it, and I want you to do it. I thought about it, and I said, okay. And I was pregnant at the time. I
Oh
was
my
pregnant at the
goodness,
time.
wow.
Oh, this is such a challenge. Like, I have like unsupported family, unsupported spouse. I'm pregnant, and here my supervisor who's going, "These are all the amazing things you're gonna do because you're an amazing person, and even if you're pregnant, you can still do it." And I'm like, "Okay," and I
Mhm,
did it, and I
yeah,
did it. You know?
yeah,
Yeah,
and now you're here and you wrote a book and you're talking about your experience, and for anybody who's watching this, especially if you're Hmong or a child of immigrants, this is so hard, and I'm going to own what I say next because not everybody is ready to hear this. Sometimes to move on and live your best life, you may have to leave the community.
yeah. You'll come back stronger and better.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
Yeah,
And a lot of my clients who sound so much like your clients too, that mindset, it's really re-deconditioning everything that we've been taught. And it's like, it's hard. It's so hard to be away. It's so hard to walk on that path. It's very lonely, and yet you know that that is best for you because you know that staying is gonna make you stuck.
yeah. And not everybody. It's either not the right time,
Hmm.
um, or it's just really, I think different people experience those moments at different times in their life, and
Yeah.
right. So then I had a client that came to me that said, if I had met you 10 years ago, I would never work with you, right? And they said
Mm.
something to the effect of, you know, my grandmother, who was very important to me, had passed away. I had to lose my job, struggle financially, and had no help from the people that I thought would help me. Like I had to experience all these hardships and challenges in life for
Hmm.
me to realize that I needed help, right?
Hmm.
And now I'm working with you, and I'm going, oh my God, I wish I met you 10 years ago, and I would have been in such a better financial situation. But then But then we started talking and we started, digging deeper to what she said. And then she's like, you know what? Now that I think about it, if I did meet you 10 years ago, I wouldn't have even wanted you to help me, right?
Mm.
Because I was in a financially stable situation. I felt like um, there was no financial struggle that I was up against. But it wasn't until I experienced life and I had all those financial struggle and it really like beat me down. And then now that I'm doing a little bit better, I realize I got to find a different way. There has to be a different path. There has to be a different way of doing things that's better, um, and not so hard, right?
Mhm.
Well, that's what I felt. That's what I felt witnessing my own parents struggle on the
Yeah.
farm, struggle in the restaurant, that there has to be a better way to do this, right? So
Mhm.
I'm gonna go learn like how to manage personal finance. I'm gonna go learn what I don't know so that I could come back
Mhm.
and help myself. I could help myself and I could come back and try to help my parents and family members that I love and and I just love helping people. I love it. And it's like so then when you've gotten like enough is enough, right? And you're at a point where I have the right mindset to ask for help because I know now that I can't do it on my own. I can't,
Mhm.
and even if the people that are closest to me would not help me,
Mhm.
plenty of people out there that are willing to help you. You just have
Yeah.
to ask,
You
right?
just have to ask,
Yeah, you have to
right?
ask. You have to love yourself enough, believe in yourself enough to invest in yourself,
Mhm.
and you just have to you have to you have to let people it's okay to ask for help, right? You have
Yeah.
to feel it's okay. And so, yeah, I really appreciate you doing this podcast. This is amazing.
It is. It is. And, I think in the future, if you ever want to collaborate again, I think so many people would love to learn more about this. And final question for you is, what does owning it mean for you?
Owning it for me,
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, it's like staying true to myself, right? And living purposefully, right? I always tell people, I tell my kids this too, like you go to school to learn a job that you would love to do,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I a lot of people struggle with what they do for work, right?
Yes, they do.
Um, but I always tell my kids too that, I don't struggle with it because what I do is an extension of who I am,
Yeah.
right? The way I serve people is an extension of who I am. I came from financial struggle. I put myself in a better financial outcome. I learn, I experience, I gain all this knowledge and expertise. And now I'm turning around and give it back to those I believe, need it most, right?
Mm-hmm.
So owning it is really finding your purpose, your mission. Why are you here? What are you here to do? What are the things that you can give back to others,
Mm-hmm.
give them joy, happiness, encouragement, support, and give them a better, like, just a better perspective and outcome in life, right?
Mm-hmm.
That and you want to try your best to stay true to it because that's the struggle, right? So
Mm-hmm.
owning it is that even if everybody is against you and you know that that is your purpose and what you need to do, to serve, you know, others and to stay true to your core self and belief and values, then you do it, right? You do
Mm-hmm.
it. And I can tell you, I give you an example. Starting my own business, everybody said, no, don't do it, right? You're gonna suffer financially. You need to stay in corporate America. My spouse at the time was like, no, it's better if you stay in corporate America and continue to make that corporate money. It's better for, us and our children. And the same with like, my dad was like, no, no, you don't need to start your own business. Just go get a PhD or something and academic, go teach. It's a safer route, right? It's a more
Right.
conservative, safer route. Like you can teach
Right.
financial planning, go get a PhD in financial planning. And I did think about all these things and what people said, right? But at the end of the day, to have the autonomy to serve people the way they need to be served, right? To support them in the way they need to be supported, even if they don't have a lot of money, I had to go independent, right?
Mm-hmm.
I had to invest in myself. I have to invest in my business. I have to invest in the people I serve.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's a financial struggle. And I struggle all the time financially to run my own business, right? But at the end of the day, I'm going to own this because
Mm-hmm.
I know what I can bring. I know what I bring to the table. I
Yeah.
know the value that I can add that I have already added to multiple hundreds of people's lives, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know that trickle effect is going to impact multiple generation, right?
Mhm.
and I'm going to do it. And against all odds, I'm going to continue to do it. Like, I'm never going to give up. I'm never going to,
Mhm.
right? I'm never going to, I'm always going to be trying, right? And
Yeah.
trying different things, different ways, and so that I can help people, right?
Mhm.
So and that's it. To me, that's like, that's owning it. But it also, with that said, it took me many, many years of growing pains, life experience to kind of be able to stick up for myself, stand up for myself, and advocate for myself because of the culture I grew up in,
Mhm.
the way I've been conditioned to think and see myself in the world,
Yeah.
which was not true, right?
Mhm.
Which what I had to like overcome that and break free of that and say, this is who I am. I want to help people. This is
Mhm.
my purpose and my mission, and I made it my goal, right? And these are the steps I have to take to make sure that that's accomplished, right? Does that make does that make sense?
That was beautiful. That was so beautiful, and you said everything, and that's a beautiful way of owning it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You're
Anything else?
owning it too with your podcast.
Thank you. Everything that you said, I was like, "Ooh, ooh, I feel it. I feel it." And that's why I'm doing this podcast because
Yeah.
I feel like so many people can benefit from hearing our stories. And this is why I chose to do this because I'm just like so many people are struggling with this. And I'm a mental health therapist. I do coaching and everything that you said. I just want people to hear a story so that they can find their own path. They can forge their own path and owning it and own it. And this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. And this is why I find other people who are owning it too.
Yeah. And with that said, I think I'll be doing a podcast too.
Yay! You should. You definitely should.
Absolutely.
So many people can benefit from it,
Yeah.
especially again, first, second generation children of immigrants, first time professionals too. I mean, I think that we think that because this is America, that a lot of Americans are college educated, which they are. And there's also a lot of families where they are the first person to go college. And even though they're not immigrant, what they're feeling emotionally, psychologically is how children of immigrants feel too.
Yeah.
Because they're the one responsible for everything because they're the one that made it.
And I agree. I agree
Hmm.
because I do have a lot of first generation professionals
Hmm.
who are like children of like farmers
Yeah.
or children of military career families where
Hmm.
they decided not to go in the military or they decide not to continue the family farm and they're going to professions like professional jobs, right?
Yeah.
Like becoming a nurse or a doctor or a lawyer or doing something else
Yeah.
that's not the family traditional way of making money, right?
Hmm.
And it's very similar. Like what they experience is like as a first generation professional is
Hmm.
very similar to
Yeah.
our story too, where the
Yeah.
struggle is real,
Yeah.
right? That lack of foundation and that lack of I don't know what I don't know is really real, and I need help, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Nucia, for being here. And I will link all her information, including her book, your website, your LinkedIn, anything else. And if you want to work with you, you work with people from all over the country, correct? Or just Minnesota?
Correct. All over the US. So I have clients all across the 50 states. So
Okay.
if you need support, you need help, just reach out and let me know, and I'll be
Okay.
more than happy to help you. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much for being here. And again, thank you. You provide such valuable information that anybody can benefit from this.
Good. Thank you for having me. I
Mm.
appreciate it.
Thank you. So if you're not subscribed, please hit in the subscribe button, and I'll see you on the next episode, everybody. So take care. Mhm.